Advait says, why do some Indian experts, in quotes, consider it wrong for India to be allyless? Even some of the retired Indian military personnel, a civilization that truly wants to rise will never have any allies. Okay, so why do some experts think of it that way? Look, I have the highest regard for military personnel, but military personnel, they have one characteristic, and that is they look at everything in the world from the military perspective, tactics and strategy. People with a military background are tremendously good at tactics and strategy. They will look at the geography, they will look at the map, they will look at the topographical map of the region, geographical terrain, they will see all the various topographical features, and they can tell you what tactics to use in this region, in this terrain, what strategy to use over a larger terrain, and so on. What they lack is, what most of them lack, I would say, is the deep understanding of history and culture. For example, if you ask a military personnel about Manipur, and let's say they've served in Manipur for 2 years, okay? They will talk about the terrain, the geography, the jungles, the kind of uh, insurgents you meet there, how ferocious they are and how evil they are and all that. But they will typically not know the deep history of the region and why these conflicts happened. And who are the real outsiders, who are the real indigenous people, they will not know this. Many of them, I'm not saying all. So that's a problem. So if you want to understand tactics, strategy, battle options, all of that, military strengths and weaknesses, all of that, military personnel are the best to give you insights in that. But when it comes to understanding geopolitics, I would have to respectably say that military personnel are generally not the best at giving you the right perspective when it comes to this. But in India, podcasters and news channels, they will invite military personnel to talk about geopolitics. It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut. The right kind of person you want to call or invite to explain geopolitics is a person who has served in the military and is also a historian. Will you find such people? You typically won't. I have once found such a person. His name is Dr. Edward Luttwak. He has served in war. He has seen action in battles, and he is a historian. He's a strategist, Dr. Edward Luttwak. And you will see my podcast with him on the Abhijit Chavda podcast episode. I don't remember which one, first 20, 25 episodes. It's somewhere in there. So that's the kind of person who can give you a proper perspective, which combines history, culture, and military matters. So retired army personnel, I don't know what calculations go on in their minds. They look at things from a very military perspective, and from a military perspective, when you are involved in a military operation, you need multiple companies, and you need an air component, you need a satellite component, you need communications, you need logistics, you need multiple detachments, platoons, tanks, infantry, all that. So they see that as allies, perhaps. That's why they think that in international relations, a nation like India should have multiple allies. Perhaps they see it that way. Perhaps I'm just speculating to a certain extent. Now, historically, think about the last 2,000 years of history. The great civilizations and empires that emerged in the last 3,000 years of history, how many allies did they have? Think about the Mauryan Empire. Did we have allies? Yeah, we did. We had one ally, the Seleucid Empire, Seleucus Nicator. So, yeah. So that was not really an alliance, it was a ceasefire. The Seleucid Empire, the Seleucus Nicator tried to invade India. Probably it was a way of saying hi, that I need some help. But there was a brief war, and then there was a ceasefire, and then there was a marriage alliance, and there was peace after that. But it was not a military alliance, it was an alliance of peace. Okay, it was a ceasefire alliance. And because the two royal families became commingled because of marriage, so that can be regarded as kind of an alliance. But it was not a military alliance at all. So the Mauryan Empire, we did not have any military alliance. The Gupta Empire, no military alliance with anybody. The Chola Empire, We did not have a single military alliance with anybody else. We had vassals. Oh, yes. The Cholas had vassals all the way to the Philippines. So we had vassals. We did not have allies. The Guptas had vassals, yes, no allies. The Mauryans had vassals, no allies, and so on. You can go on. Um, when it comes to other empires, the Persian empires, the Achaemenid or Achaemenish Empire, they exclusively fought westwards with the Greeks. Did they have allies? They had no allies. The Roman Empire, did they have allies? They had zero allies. They only had vassals. The British Empire, did they have allies? No, they had vassals and colonies. Until, okay, you're gonna give me the example of World War One and World War Two. That was a totally different period of history, which was the decline and eventual dissolution of the British Empire or the transfer of power to Washington. That is a different story. But when you talk about the rise of the British Empire in its pinnacle, in its zenith, it had no allies. It had only vassals. The U.S. Empire today, they say they have allies, but that term ally that they use it for vassals. So, if you want to rise and be great, you will never have allies. You will have enemies, and if you get your act together, you will have vassals. And then you can use whatever language you want to describe those vassals. You can call them allies if you want, but they're actually vassals. So you are right. I agree. A civilization that wants to rise again will never have allies. It will have enemies. But once it starts winning, it's going to have vassals. So what India needs desperately is to put a few wins in its belt. We need to start winning something. I'm not saying go and capture this country, conquer that territory. We need wins, big achievements. Yeah, space station in orbit around the Earth, moon landing, moon colony, Mars colony, or 50 nuclear submarines, or something of that sort, without actually going to war, or maybe a positive development west of India in the temporary nation and so on, or a positive development vis-a-vis China and Tibet. I mean, lots of different ways of winning, or hosting the Olympics and winning 30 gold medals. That's a win. India needs to start winning. But the point is, as a civilization, if you want to rise again, and historically we have been number one, historically, that the past 10,000 years, the past 1,000 years has been an aberration. So, you want to rise again, you will not have any allies. You will have everybody standing up against you and trying to stop you from rising. You're going to have enemies. And that's what we are facing now. We're finally kind of rising. That's why everyone's against us. We don't have any allies. And it's fine to not have any allies. Why do we need allies? We are 1.4 billion of us. Why do we need allies? Don't we have each other? Isn't 1.4 billion people enough? We have each other. That's enough for us. We don't need allies. We need to get our act together, raise our standards, and start winning. That's what we need.